All right, folks, it's another edition of WFXR Sports Sit Down on WFXRTV.com, and it is a joy and a pleasure to talk to someone that is one of the founding members of the WFXR Sports team, a young lady. She worked in South Dakota. She worked in the Bay Area. She worked, again, with us, WFXR, and she's in Sin City, Las Vegas at our sister station, KLAS, CBS affiliate. It is the pride of Oil City, Pennsylvania. You probably forgot that. Kevaney Martin, what is up, K Mart? The Blue Light Special. The band's back together again.
I know. Thank you so much for having me, Reggie. This is awesome.
I tell you, it is always a joy. And of course, following what you're doing now, I am so proud. I feel like a proud dad, to see you grow and all that. And I got to ask you, first of all, as I go to my cheat sheet of notes, because, when you got to be professional when you do these. I just got to ask you, first of all, what made you want to get into broadcasting and sports broadcasting?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I mean, obviously, I played basketball my entire life. I was always a huge sports fan. I was a huge tomboy growing up. So I was playing sports with the neighborhood kids. So I always knew that I wanted to get into a profession that dealt with sports. But in college, I wanted to get into sports writing. So I was the sports editor of our student newspaper, and repeatedly had to answer this question. People would always ask me why I was getting into a dying business. And by my senior year at Monmouth, I was a little bit exhausted of answering that question. And someone asked if I'd ever thought about broadcast. And I said no. And then we had it's called Hawk TV. It's a student run broadcast station, and I gave it a try and fell in love, and here I am now.
Wow. And your career has spanned over, if I add it up all right, I mean, we're looking at roughly you're going on your 7th or 8th year in the business. I mean, you started off in South Dakota, and then we'll go back to the college stuff in a second, but South Dakota, you went out to California, and again, as I mentioned, in Roanoke, Virginia, and then in Vegas. But talk about, first of all, your stop in South Dakota, because I could tell you right now, that's probably one of the last places I would work, but hey, you got to get your foot in the door somewhere. So just talk about your experience working out at the ABC affiliate out there in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Yeah, you actually took the words right out of my mouth. Absolutely, you have to get your foot in the door. And as I mentioned earlier, I didn't really have a background in broadcast. I was set on getting into print sports journalism until halfway through my senior year. So I didn't have I didn't understand how the business worked. I really didn't know anything about getting into sports broadcasting. So the little reel that I did put together in 6 months, I look back at it now and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I sent that out to places.
Do you still have it? Do you still have that reel?
I think so, yeah. I will not show you.
You're not going to send it to me? You ain't going to let me critique it?
I'll send it out. It's quite comical, and it's funny because back then you think you're so good,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just sent it out to a few smaller markets, and the sports director at, as you mentioned, KSFY, the ABC affiliate in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Eric Thorstensen, reached out to me and said, we have an opening for an unpaid internship. Yeah, that's how it started. And then so I actually packed my bags. At the time, I just graduated from Monmouth in New Jersey, packed my bags and drove to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which initially started as an unpaid internship, and then worked my way up, and I was anchoring the weekends. So my stint in Sioux Falls was only, I think, 11 and a half months, just short of a year.
Yeah, that's something. You got to get out of there, get some warm weather. And speaking of warm weather, I mean, you went out to California. Now, I know I'm a butcher it. Was it Cal High? Am I butchering it? I think I'm saying it. Did I get it?
You're on the right track. It was a high school sports show called Cal High Sports Bay Area.
Ooh, good.
And it's really the only one of its kind in the country. It's an hour-long sports show that aired on the CBS affiliate out in the Bay Area every Sunday night. And so, I mean, it was a blast. Definitely a different work environment as far as, working in news where you have tight deadlines and everything. Since we only had one show every Sunday night, we had time to actually work on stories and, not rush to get stuff done. But yeah, it was the high school sports show out there. And I worked there for 3 years, I think. And I loved it, loved every second of it.
And I tell you one thing, before you came to WFXR, I could tell you right now, I saw your reel, and I could tell you, I think I remember our first conversation we had, and I said, you're going places, because I saw the potential, and I saw what you did. Do you remember kind of that conversation we had? Because I mean, I remember like it was yesterday, because I think it was you and Dwight, you were making a journey across country in a U-Haul, and I was working in Texas. And you guys were talking about coming up. And I said, hey, I love your reel. I'm telling you, you're going to do things. Do you remember kind of that conversation?
Oh yeah. Because we had already, yeah, you mentioned the cross country drive. That would have been our third one. So we had already been driving all over the country, and I'm like, here we go again. We're heading out to Virginia. And I remember Rob Tompkins, who was the news director at the time, sent me your name and said, this is going to be your colleague. So I reached out, and we hit it off from the beginning. I remember our first conversation. I think it was either you or I said, I feel like I've known you for so many years, and we hadn't even met yet. I think that was where Jay Bird, your nickname, was born, because I told you about Kmart. So Kmart and Jay Bird. But yeah, I remember that conversation like it was yesterday. We were so excited to hit the ground running in Roanoke, Virginia.
It's fun stuff. What is your fondest memory of working at WFXR? Because I mean, you've accomplished so much while you were there. You won awards, and you did so much. Do you have like a fond memories, or one that stand out more than anything else?
Man, that's tough. My time there, it was only 2 years, but yeah, like you said, I feel like there was so much that we covered in those 2 years, and it was a blast. Of course, Virginia Tech men's basketball trip to the NCAA tournament. I think it was their first trip to the tournament in 10 years, 11 years?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That was so much fun. Just following them that season, and then heading up to Buffalo in the middle of a blizzard and covering the first round of the NCAA.
Yeah, it's funny how that worked out. I went to Orlando to cover UVA. You went to Buffalo to cover Virginia Tech.
Remember, they had like a record-breaking blizzard.
Yes. And you left a day early, actually. You left a day earlier than you were supposed to, because you had to beat the blizzard. You drove.
Right.
What's weird, you drove and I flew. Whereas I think you wanted to fly and I wanted to drive. But they said, no, you gotta drive. But gosh, you talk about drawing the straw.
Yeah, that was fun though. That was a very fond memory. And then of course, just getting to experience Frank Beamer's last year after he announced his retirement. Just seeing a legend, and the way they carried him off the field at UVA after that win in the Commonwealth Clash, that was incredible. Seeing that, and then getting to cover Justin Fuente's first season and them making the trip to the ACC championship football game against Clemson, that was awesome. So yeah, I mean, all that, and then Virginia is special, especially Roanoke, Virginia, Southwest Virginia, just the high school sports that we got to cover. It was a blast. It was fun.
I think two events that stood out to me, which you covered, which, I mean, you killed it. The Battle of Bristol, the first time a college football game ever took place at the Bristol Motor Speedway between Tennessee and Virginia Tech. And then the Super Bowl, which you covered the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history. Just talk about those two things, because first of all, you put in a lot of work into both those events, but just talk about covering those.
Yeah, first, the Battle of Bristol, that was an experience. Just seeing a football field in the middle of Bristol Motor Speedway, and the amount of people that were there. That was definitely a fun memory. Like you said, I remember it was like a 16, 17-hour day at the end of it, but when you're doing something like that, it doesn't feel like work, it's just like, wow. So that was definitely a once in a lifetime experience. And then Super Bowl 51 in Houston, you mentioned the Patriots coming back from 21-0 and, taking down
28-3.
There you go, 28-3.
There were shirts throughout New England that said 28-3.
Yeah, there you go. That was, I still can't believe that I was there for that. that was just incredible. It was a blast to experience that. And, you know, the whole week leading up to that, the Super Bowl coverage is definitely it's a lot. But just being able to do that, and it was huge, and definitely, like you mentioned, a high point when I was at WFXR.
I tell you, you did a great job. And you mentioned before Frank Beamer, who is a legend. I mean, a Hall of Famer, one of the nicest people around. You got to do 2 sit-down interviews with him. But the story I love, you got to tell it. The first time you ever met Frank Beamer. And the interesting thing is you both share a birthday. Y'all both have the same birthday, which is, should I tell you what your birthday is, what day it is? Or keep it a secret?
Keep it a secret.
Okay. All right. But anyway, y'all both have the same birthday. You can reveal it. But anyway, talk about your first. Was that now?
October 18th. That's.
I was, yeah, because I was hoping I was going to mess it up. That's why I kind of said you say it. So, but yeah, but talk about you. I love you shared a story. The first meeting you ever had with Frank Beamer. I love that story.
Obviously, he's a legend, like you mentioned. So that was like, I was so excited that, I get to cover Virginia Tech football with Frank Beamer, So I remember getting my first assignment ever, and it was a Frank Beamer press conference, kind of like a preseason type thing. And I was brand new to the area. I jumped in a news vehicle, had no idea how to even get to Virginia Tech. I had the GPS and everything, so I'm just lost. I'm like a deer caught in the headlights. I get to Lane Stadium, and I have all my gear, and it's a super hot day, and I walk out onto the field out through the tunnel, and I'm so lost. I'm just like, where is this press conference? I'm like looking all over the place. I'm literally walking across the field in Lane Stadium, and I see like a group of people at the 50-yard line, like huddled together. And I was like, oh my gosh, maybe they know. And like, I'm trying to figure out, and like, I put 2 and 2 together. I'm like, oh, that's coaches. And then all of a sudden, out of the middle of the pack comes Frank Beamer, and he comes walking towards me. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's Coach Beamer. And I'd never seen him in person. Obviously, I watched a lot of college football growing up. So, always saw him on TV. And he comes walking towards me, and he's like, this is a fresh face. What's your name? And I was like, I'm Kevaney Martin. He's like, nice to meet you. I'm Coach Beamer. And he's like, how can I help you? I was like, I am so lost. Like, where am I supposed to go? So he was just the sweetest. He's like, oh, over there, So I just remember that, just, like we keep saying, a legend, Frank Beamer, but he is one of the nicest people, the most unassuming people I've ever met in my life. He always, whenever, and I've heard someone else say this too, whenever he's talking to you, he makes you feel so important. Like it's the most important conversation he's ever had, which is really cool. So yeah, that was a special moment. It was just so funny that like, I was just like a deer, oh my gosh, that's Coach Beamer. Oh, so yeah, that kicked off my tenure at WFXR.
It's interesting, when you come across Coach Beamer, as many times we all have, you're still in awe of him, and he still remembers your name. Like, he doesn't forget a name. I remember, when Yolanda and I, we went to Beamer's 25, and he's sitting there eating with Cheryl and the grandkids and everybody. He's eating at Beamer's 25, and what's so crazy is no one noticed he was there. It's not like, he comes, hey, I'm Frank Beamer. We go in there, and Coach Beamer says hi to me. Hey, Jermaine, how you doing? And then everybody knows there's Coach Beamer over there. And he's just he's not out there, like some other coaches. And it's just such a blessing to be around him. Now, here's another interesting thing here. So earlier today, I interviewed the first ever female full-time sportscaster. Her name was Denise Allen Membreno, who worked at Channel 7 from the late 80s through 2000. She was the first one. During your time at WFXR, it was you, it was Karen Loftus, Alyssa Ray, 3 young ladies that, are just killing it right now, doing great things. Of course, Karen in New Orleans, then to Tampa, and then Alyssa down to Raleigh. The irony is now everybody's in the Next Star family, which is kind of cool. Now, the thing is, so you were 3 of the 5 women to work in Roanoke, and obviously there've been a couple afterwards, but I just got to ask you, what was it like kind of being a part of that history? Because all 3 of y'all are awesome, and it's just so great to see you all just take your sports coverage another level, covering big events. We covered big events in Roanoke, but now you're in Vegas, and Alyssa's in Raleigh and Karen's in Tampa. But just talk about how three y'all kind of had that sisterhood bond. I mean, it seemed like y'all were very close. What was that dynamic like?
Yeah, first and foremost, Alyssa and Karen, it was just such an honor to be able to work with them day in and day out while we were in Virginia. I learned, they're both such talented women. And like you said, just seeing where they have gone with their careers and watching them grow is just awesome. And to think that we all started, together in Roanoke is pretty cool. And before, I didn't even know that we were three of the first female broadcasters in that market before you said that. So that's pretty cool. Just getting to experience the things that I did with such strong and talented women like Alyssa and Karen makes the memories even more special.
It's interesting. All three of y'all have a NHL franchise. You got the Golden Knights. Alyssa's got the Hurricane, and then Karen has the Tampa Bay Lightning. But speaking of Las Vegas, I mean, you get there in 2017, not a lot of pro sports there at all. Now, Las Vegas has just exploded to a major sports city. You got the Raiders there right now. You have the Aces there. You have the Golden Knights, which, by the way, I think I'm a Golden Knights fan. I think part of it is because of you, because I don't have a hockey team. But what's it like to be a part of that? Because you just kind of came in when it all started really getting big. What's it like for you now to be a part of it now?
Yeah, it's been an incredible journey. When I took this job, I had a couple other offers in, big markets, and I talked to a few of my mentors, and they were like, "You'd be crazy to pass up this opportunity in Las Vegas. What's going to be going on in that city is something, that we've never seen before." And it really has been a crazy journey. Literally, my first day on the job was Mayweather-McGregor Grand Arrivals. And I was like, what is going on? This is crazy. So then I covered that. And then, of course, I covered the fight, the Mayweather-McGregor fight. And literally, it's just been nonstop ever since. You mentioned the Golden Knights and the Raiders and the Aces. And we got a USL team, a professional hockey or professional soccer team. It's literally, it's fun. You wake up every day and there's something big going on, and it's a blast. And I'm really grateful to be able to cover sports in this market. It's such an interesting and fun time.
Yeah, and then you get there, the Golden Knights run to the Stanley Cup. I mean, I'm sure. Just talk about the energy they have brought to the community, because they're the first ones, the first professional franchise there. It just seems like Las Vegas they've embraced the Golden Knights. Talk about that Stanley Cup run too, and just how the city has embraced them.
Yeah, we talk about it in the sports office to this day. We were like, did that really happen? There were just so many moments during that inaugural season where you would just shake your head and be like, are you serious? Is this really happening? And we kind of all just buckled in and went along for the ride, to be honest, because we knew, if you think about it, we're never going to see that again, most likely. And, we'd never seen that before. A team in its first season make a run to the Stanley Cup final. And yeah, just to be a part of it and just see the city, like you said, when it was announced that an NHL franchise was coming to Las Vegas, you heard all the doubters, all the haters, that hockey will never work in the desert and all this stuff. Now here we are, and T-Mobile Arena is the #1 atmosphere in the NHL. It's just incredible. It's a playoff atmosphere every single night. This city has just embraced the Golden Knights, and vice versa. The team has completely embraced the city. They're always out in the community. It's just an incredible thing to see. And like I said before, I'm honestly grateful to be able to kind of witness it as well as cover it and just soak it all in, because I know that it's a rarity, and really enjoying the ride, that's for sure.
Speaking of rides, it's like the Raiders have bounced everywhere. I remember when they were the Oakland Raiders, then the Los Angeles Raiders, then back to Oakland, and then now they're going to be in Las Vegas, the Las Vegas Raiders, which still I got to get used to. I'm even struggling saying the Los Angeles Chargers. But Just talk about the Raiders, because it seems like they kind of already had that presence in Vegas, but now with the new stadium, which I heard, now correct me if I'm wrong, but the Raiders will be playing on grass and UNLV will be playing on turf. Do I have that right? Because I saw some drawings where they're going to change the surfaces up for each team.
Yeah, talk about a franchise like the Raiders with so much tradition and history. You're talking about maybe one of the most recognizable. When you look at the Raiders shield, I mean, it's global, right? And you mentioned Raider Nation, and I mean, they're everywhere. I was at Henry Ruggs was out. He made his first appearance here yesterday, signing autographs, and Raider Nation was out in full force. There was a line wrapped around this building just to meet Henry Ruggs, and I did a quick interview with him, and he was shocked. He's like, I haven't even stepped on a field in the silver and black, and this is the type of support I'm getting. He was so thrilled and excited. But yeah, speaking of the stadium, Allegiant Stadium, it is gorgeous. I mean, it's $2 billion, 65,000 seats. State-of-the-art retractable roof. You mentioned the grass, so the grass will be wheeled in and out for every Raiders game, and then underneath, like you mentioned, the UNLV's is also playing their home games there. We'll be playing on turf. It's beautiful. It is. I mean, they have the doors that open up with the torch that will be there. That has the you can see the landscape, and the strip will be right there. Yeah, everyone, I don't know if you, so it's gotten a few nicknames. If you see it at night, it lights up and everyone calls it the Death Star. It's awesome. And then also, if you're flying over it, it looks like a Roomba. So it's gotten a few nicknames. But yeah, it's a lot. I mean, people are excited. I mean, like you said, we've seen this city transform into a professional sports town overnight almost. And you can kind of feel the buzz in the air, you know. The Raiders are here, and we've covered it from day one when the rumors started and groundbreaking, and we're almost, you know, training camp starts in a month.
That's something. Now, let's talk a little about Kobe Bryant. I mean, obviously, his death impacted many in the sports world. You got a chance to interview him, but particularly his daughter Gigi, which, I mean, she was going to be a WNBA star. She was going to probably take the Black Mamba to another level. Take me back to when you got a chance to interview. It was more her than Kobe, because I'm sure that, hey, you know, we're talk to my daughter, you know, not myself. And it seemed like he always made a point to put her in the spotlight versus himself. Let's talk about that day when you got a chance to interview them.
Yeah, this is actually one of my favorite stories to tell because it really, like you said, shows a different side of Kobe. So he unexpectedly, unannounced, showed up in an Aces game. Him and the Mambas, his AAU team that he coached, flew in for an Aces game. Did not know it at the time, but I guess Gigi was a huge Aces fan. That was like her team. So of course, we're all, you know, the media's NBC, ABC, CBS, all the affiliates are there covering this game, and then Kobe Bryant walks in, and you know, everyone's like, oh, we're going to try to get this interview. So I watch the NBC affiliate go up and try to get an interview, and he was turning all the media down, and I had a live shot coming up. So I was like, you know what? To be honest, I want to talk to Gigi. I know she's a huge WNBA fan, so I went up. I saw his PR person standing there, and I said, "Hey, excuse me. I noticed Kobe's not doing any interviews, but is it okay if I interview Gigi and Kobe can come if he wants?" And he was like, "You know what? I'll check with him. I don't see a problem. I'll find out." So I watched him walk over, and you know, he clearly asks Kobe, and instantly you see Kobe's face just light up. And he points back at me, the reporter, and he's like, of course. So it was a timeout or between quarters or something. They came back and met me at my cameraman, and he was just ear to ear grinning because the interview was really about Gigi and just her excitement to be there, and you know, her dream of playing in the WNBA. And, you know, when I was asking her these questions, when you watch the interview back, you just see Kobe looking at her with just this proud dad moment, you know. And, you know, I spoke to him too. I asked him a few questions just about the women's game and Having someone like that, like Kobe Bryant, who, is arguably up there as one of the greatest of all time with Michael Jordan and LeBron James, to have him, showing support for the women's game was huge. And he genuinely loved being there, loved watching the WNBA, and it was just a special moment that I'll never forget that, and just being able to share that. It was my only interview with Kobe, and just being able to share that interview with him and his daughter, and just seeing the bond that they have built through and around the game of basketball was pretty special.
And the thing is, what made that moment great, and what you did, which probably everybody was thinking, I got to interview Kobe, I got to interview Kobe. You thought outside the box. You said, okay, can we interview Gigi? And that probably what sold it. I think if you would have been like everybody else, say, hey, I want to interview Kobe, but you interviewed Gigi, and I guarantee you that did it. Obviously, you got the interview where no else, and you're probably the only one in the market to even get that interview.
Yeah, people were confused. A couple of the guys from the other stations came over. They're like, wait, we thought he wasn't doing interviews. I was like, I don't know. Don't ask me.
That's what you call blue light special, because you, like I said, you thought outside the box. Because those guys were thinking Kobe. You're thinking Gigi, and that'll do it. I mean, I look at it like this. What dad's gonna turn that down?
Yeah. He had been there, done that. He interviewed with everyone on, every network possible for years and years and years. He had been there, done that. It was all about, he wasn't there for the media. It was all about his daughter and, his daughter's teammates, and it was their time to shine. And you could totally tell that's what he was there for,
That's awesome stuff. Now, you had to put on your news hat. You've done it before. You did it with us here, but obviously the tragedy in Las Vegas, which, I mean, it was unbelievable. And to see the coverage that you did, you went into news mode. And it seems like Las Vegas is making a strong recovery from that. But just talk about the experience there from your perspective on that.
Yeah, probably the toughest night of my life. Actually, the Golden Knights had just finished. They played their final preseason game against the San Jose Sharks that night, and I covered that. And then I went back to the station to help my colleague, the other sports anchor that was working that night, John, get ready for the sportscast, the 11 o'clock sportscast. So we finished up that. I edited my package, and it was about 10:30. And we were just back in the sports office, just talking and waiting for the 11 to start. And the weekend anchor came running in, and his face was just white. And he was like, who's available? We need someone. We need you both or anyone to go down on the strip. There's been a shooting. And at first, honestly, I mean, it's Las Vegas. It's the strip. There's shootings on the strip pretty much every night. So we were like, I don't know, what's so significant about this? So then John and I get up, and John goes into the control room, and I'll never forget it. I was standing outside near the assignment desk, waiting, to hear what was going on. And John comes out, and he's taking his tie off, and he's like, sports is canceled. I'm heading to Sunrise, which is one of the main hospitals where 90% of the people that were injured or shot were taken. And I'm like, what is going on? And he's like, there's been a mass shooting on the strip. The shooter is still at large. I'm heading to Sunrise. And I was like, oh my gosh. So then our assignment desk editor was like, Kevaney, we need you to head down there, because all of our reporters that were working that night were already out on assignment, because we were about a half hour from the 11 o'clock news. So I jump in a car, and he's like, I'll have a photog meet you at Thomas and Mack, which is where UNLV plays. And what had happened was, when the shooting started, Mandalay Bay is right near the airport. So what had happened is people actually started to run onto the airport field where so planes were grounded, and on the other side of the airport is Thomas and Mack. So a lot of people actually were heading to Thomas and Mack. They set up a triage there, and so people were just funneling in there, trying to find loved ones, using it as kind of a base. So they had me there, and I showed up, and it was just mayhem. Heartbreaking things that I saw that night. And like you mentioned, I mean, we work in sports, and I don't think I could have ever prepared myself for that night. I think the toughest thing, that we cover in sports is like, a season-ending injury, and we're talking about mass fatalities that night, injuries, people's lives that were changed forever. And yeah, it was tough. It was really the first time that I ever had to cover news. And I did a couple live shots, and yeah, just heartbreaking stuff that I don't think I'll ever forget. And it makes you appreciate things, I mean, these people, like, they were out on a Saturday night, or I think it was a Sunday night. Yeah, it was a Sunday night at a concert, just living life, loving life. And then this happens, and the fear, the look in their eyes, like, I'll never forget that. So yeah, and you mentioned the Golden Knights, like, they helped the city heal so much that year. And I think that's what made the run to the Stanley Cup Finals so special, was you're looking at this city that had experienced such tragedy, and the Golden Knights offered them an escape, even if it was for 2 hours or 3 hours during the game. And they just kept winning and winning and winning, and it gave the city something to smile about. So yeah, I think about it almost every day, and it makes me appreciate life more, and not take the little things for granted. And yeah.
That's it. That's powerful. And like I said, for you to jump in and cover it the way you did. I saw a lot of your stuff, and I tell you, I've have had a news background, been in homicides and stuff like that, and it can take a toll on you, and then to have that escape, which sports does. But speaking of impact, COVID-19, big
Yeah.
impact. How has it affected you out at KLAS and your crew out there? How you covering sports? Because I know it's changed the way we are doing it, so I'm sure it's the same on your end.
Yeah, it was funny because I mentioned the Henry Ruggs autograph signing yesterday. That was the first live, like, in-person interview I've done in months. Like, Zoom interviews are the way to go now. I just like
right now.
I made the joke that I've seen way too many athletes' living rooms in the past 4 months that I've never wanted or needed to see. Like, so yeah, it's definitely changed things. We've had to get creative, and but it's the least, like, we're talking about sports and covering sports. Like, that's so not important compared to this pandemic and what it's doing. The amount of people that have passed away because of it, the amount of people that are sick. So yeah, it's definitely made our lives more challenging as far as how we cover and content wise. But you look at the big picture, it's kind of like, if Zoom interviews help get us through this pandemic and the less contact, I'll do it. Like, there's a lot more important things going on right now than sports.
I will tell you this: when we got the word, I was down in Greensboro for the ACC tournament, and when they made the announcement, they presented, John Swafford, who's retiring at the end of this coming season. They presented Florida State with a trophy for the ACC, and it was just one of those things like ground zero. Like, you're there, and they make all the cancellations, and it started with what happened in Oklahoma City and with the Utah Jazz player, and then it just blew up to where it is now, to where sports is on the back burner. Which, at the end of the day, it's just sports. We do provide some relief and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, it's just sports. But I got to ask you this: not only you're a sports reporter and anchor, well, let me rephrase it. Not only you're a sports anchor and reporter, anchor got put before reporter, but that's just me. You remember the TV show Living Color, where they had the family called Avon, the family, they got multiple jobs.
Mm-hmm.
You are, I had to make sure I didn't miss anything. You're a color analyst for UNLV women's basketball. You write about mid-major basketball for the mid, is it mid?
College Insider.
College Insider, okay. And I want to name it mid-major, but it's wrong. And then, you are the lady of doing things for the CIT tournament. You do that tournament. What's it like to do all those roles? Because you're kind of like getting a different taste of everything in sports.
Yeah, I love it. When UNLV asked if I would be interested in doing the color, I was just overjoyed. I was like, that's like, I mean, I get to talk hoops for 2 hours. Are you serious? So yeah, that is a blast. I absolutely love that. And then of course, the college insider work that I do. I played mid-major Division I basketball, so that always has a special place in my heart. So the fact that, you know, they give me that outlet to get to be creative and, you know, cover mid-major hoops across the country is awesome. And then of course you mentioned the CIT, which is the College Insider Tournament that I was the sideline for. It's a blast. Like you said, it kind of lets me, it's really helped me grow in all aspects of this. Because as you know, I mean, being an anchor is one thing, and then being out in the field is another thing, and then being a color analyst. So it's really helped me grow and see how far I can take this and use my creative juices. Like I said, I was a writer, so I love to write. That's like, I think, my strong point. So this gives me, you know, College Insider particularly gives me a chance to actually, you know, flex my writing gun.
That's I will tell you, it's kind of doubling back to your college and even your high school career and the stories you told me about your ACL injuries. With my heart went out for you. I mean, and you don't have to go into specifics, but how do you feel that those experiences? Because you're just such a grounded and wonderful person, and I'm sure those experiences, tearing your ACL those many times in high school and then in college, how do you feel that it molded you and shaped you into what you are today?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I had a total of 6 knee surgeries, tore my ACL 4 times, and then all the other ligaments in there, meniscus, PCL, MCL, you name it. My knees are bionic at this point.
You are the Lindsay Wagner of sports.
Exactly. And what's funny is my knees feel better than ever nowadays. I'm like, where were you like 10 years ago? Come on.
Yeah, you're probably running more now than you did when you were.
Yeah, I think, you know, when you're in those situations, like, it's just so defeating. And, you know, to go through it over and over and over again. And, you know, being in this business, you're going to face a lot more no's, a lot more defeats than yeses, you know, and in triumph. So it's definitely, this business is tough. It's ugly. It's, you know, you got to have thick skin to be in this business, as you know. So I think my background with, you know, having to continually come back and, you know, facing so much adversity with my knees and, you know, really, people are like, I remember people asking me, why are you still playing after I tore my ACL for the 4th time? And I mean, I said, I would never give this up. Basketball is my passion. I played it my entire life. I worked so hard to get to this point. They're going to have to literally drag me off the court. So they pretty much did, because my knees just gave out. But yeah, so I do think that, you know, being in that situation, while at the time it was hard and, you know, why me, you know, now I look back and I'm like, that definitely molded and shaped me to who I am today, for sure.
Now, obviously, with everything that's going on with the Black Lives Matter movement, fighting against some systematic racism and the social injustice and equality, your feelings on how sports is getting involved with this, just your thoughts on that.
I think it's absolutely incredible. I think it's unfortunate that it took this long for, you know, the Black Lives Matter to really come to the forefront. It's been an issue, obviously, for years and years and years and years and years. But the fact that leagues and teams and obviously players are using their platforms to really push this and make it out there and known, and, you know, change needs to happen, and that's what people are saying. And I think it's so powerful that you know, it gained much momentum, and to see, you know, a lot of the players, you know, there's several WNBA players, Renee Montgomery, who's saying that she's not playing this year, that she's solely focusing on continuing the momentum that has been built here for the Black Lives Matter movement. So, you know, that it's powerful to see, and it's incredible. Like I said, that players and organizations and teams and leagues have used their platform for so much good, not good, but, you know, shedding light on all the pain for a good reason, to get the change that's needed.
Good deal. Now, you have a special person. It's a person, a four-legged person in your life by the name of Reggie. We see his picture like right over your right shoulder, by the way.
This
uh,
picture's over this place.
what's that now?
This dog, his pictures are all over here.
I know. I'm looking for the wall size picture of Reggie. Now, how long have you had Reggie? And I kind of know a couple of the answers, but for everybody who don't know, how long have you had Reggie? And when will he get his own TV show? No, I'm kidding. Why did you name the dog Reggie?
So I got Reggie August 25th of 2018 because he's going to be turning his second birthday is July 1st. So we have a big old party for Reg.
All the dog biscuits and buddies he can have.
Yeah. So yeah, I named him Reggie. So my favorite player growing up since day one, actually since second grade, I fell in love with Reggie Miller. And I wore 31 my entire career from second grade all through college because of Reggie Miller. Read every book on Reggie Miller, studied the way he played, just the biggest Reggie Miller fan growing up. So I always said, if I get a dog, I'm going to name him Reggie. And here we are.
That's awesome. A couple of Reggie Miller stories for you. When I was stationed in Indianapolis in the early 90s, I got a chance to see a bunch of Indiana Pacer games, and Reggie was the man. And then, that run and the rivalry they had with the Knicks and then with the Bulls at the end, which I honestly felt they were a better team than that Bulls team they took to 7. I thought they could have beaten the Bulls and probably won a championship. And then obviously they made it to the finals where they lost to the Lakers, which they weren't going to beat that team. But I felt they could have beat that Bulls team when they took them to 7, which was part of the Last Dance documentary, which they talked about.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think the coolest part about that Last Dance documentary was, if you notice, Michael Jordan probably gave the most respect to Reggie Miller. He didn't say, Jordan was very carefree in that documentary and really spoke his mind. But when it came to Reggie Miller, he's like, that dude was bad. Like, that dude was bad. Like, and that's one of the reasons why I love Reggie. He talked crap. He was crazy. So yeah, that documentary was cool, and I love to see the spotlight on Reggie.
Yeah. Real quick, my second Reggie Miller story, and I'm trying to remember. I think they were in San Jose. You know what they were when I was out there for Virginia Tech and Liberty. 2 things I regretted not doing. 1, not meeting up with Dwight. Shame on me, but the time change screwed me up. I was sleeping at different times and all that. The second thing was Reggie Miller and Kevin Harlan was there. And I was so tempted to go up and say, hey, there's this young lady. She does sports in Las Vegas, real tight with. Her name was Kevaney Martin. Could you do a little hi, Kevaney, how you doing? And it looked like I probably shouldn't have done it, but I probably should have said, what, the worst thing you can say is no. But yeah, I was tempted to go up there and get my phone because I did remember with Kyle Macy. I got a picture of him with you. So, but yeah, that was kind of another Reggie Miller story. I said, he's talking to Buzz and he's talking to all these other people. And I said, I probably should go up there and do that. So I didn't, but I know next time.
So he does the Mountain West tournament here in Vegas every year.
Oh, okay.
So I met him, and it was right after I got Reggie. So we were in the media room. We were just chit-chatting, and I was like, now the next thing I'm going to tell you might sound a little crazy, but I named my dog after you. And he was like, what? That's awesome. He's like, you have a picture? So it was right after I got Reggie. So we were like going back and forth. And so, yeah, every year that was the first year I had Reggie. So this past year, not obviously because the Mountain West tournament didn't happen, but he's like, how's my boy Reggie? I was like, oh, that's awesome. So yeah, Reggie and Reggie have seen each other.
I didn't know he did the Mountain West tournament. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ferrell 5 questions. Number 1, you're a workout queen. What's your favorite song to play while you're working out or going on a long run? It seems like you run like 50 miles every day. It seems like. What's the song?
It's because of my dog, who has an insane amount of energy. So, and what's funny is I used to not be able to run without music. Like, I absolutely need music. But now I do a lot of trail running, and that's basically, we go on the trails every morning and we do about 10 to 15 miles, and I don't get service up there. Right. So, what's crazy is now, for the past, since I've lived out here, I don't listen to music at all when I run. I never thought I would be that person, but it's more for me. I kind of get lost in my thoughts. It's like a meditative outlet for me while I'm running. So really interesting. I don't listen to music anymore. And when I go to a gym, I'm so used to not using music that I just don't have music on. So unfortunately, that didn't answer your question because I just don't.
So Kevaney has no music.
I'm that weird person that doesn't listen to music.
That's good stuff. Okay, now here's the interesting. You're throwing this big, massive dinner party. Name 5 sports figures. It could be past, present, living, dead. It could be in broadcasting. It could be in athletics. Any sports figures that you would like to sit down and have a meal with, and why?
All right. Well, of course, since we just spent the last 10 minutes talking about him, I would definitely invite Reggie Miller.
Okay.
Pat Summitt.
Oh,
Definitely.
that's a good one.
Not only what she accomplished as a coach, but hearing stories, I heard that she was just the coolest woman. Like, she was one of those people that you could just kind of like, the stories that I read kind of reminds me of Frank Beamer in a way, just unassuming and a legend. So definitely Pat Summitt. Another coach that I would love to just
real quick with Pat Summitt. Do you think you could play for her?
Are we talking pre or post 6 knee surgeries? Pre, I don't know. Tennessee. I mean, that's legit. I'm confident. Yeah, I could have.
I was expecting you to say absolutely yes, I could play for Pat Summitt.
You know me too well.
I'm saying. I was surprised you hesitated.
I was just thinking about my knees, and I was like, no way. Yeah. So another coach, it would definitely be Greg Popovich, for sure.
Oh, that'd be a good one.
Yeah, I would love to he's so smart and so opinionated and so respected in the game. I could probably talk to Greg Popovich forever.
You got 2 more.
2 more, all right. 100% my favorite baseball player of all time, and just the amazing person that he was, Roberto Clemente. I would, by far, that would be on my list. And then number 5, man, that's tough. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, probably. I had the pleasure of sitting down and interviewing him here, and I didn't want the interview to end at all. Like, I just wanted to keep going and going and going because, I mean, he's probably one of the smartest humans, and just what he's seen and, everything that he stands for. And yeah, I would love to sit down with him and just talk. So that's my 5: Reggie Miller, Pat Summitt, Greg Popovich, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Roberto Clemente.
Wow, be a lot of basketball in there.
Yeah, I know, right? I was thinking, I'm like, I should have mixed this up a little bit more.
No, that's fine. Hey, that's your dinner party, and I guess I'm on a waiting list. So.
Oh, of course, and you'll be my +1.
I'll be your +1. No, that should be Dwight. Dwight's the +1.
For sure.
Good stuff. Your favorite color and why?
A good question. I love the color green. I wear green a lot, but I've also always loved like the powder baby blue, always growing up. And it's funny because Weimaraners have baby blue eyes, but about 98% of them grow out of their baby blue eyes. Only 1% hold on to their blue eyes. And Reggie, my Weimaraner, has kept his blue eye. So I always think that's so cool. And he has like this really sharp baby blue eye. So that's definitely another favorite color of mine.
Okay, all right, here's another question. And I kind of know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Basketball player, past or present, you would want to take the game-winning shot, and why?
Come on, Miller time, baby. 8 points. What? 8 points in 8.9 seconds in the 95.
I think it seemed like it was less than that. I remember watching that.
Yeah, in the 95 semifinals against the Knicks. I mean,
yeah.
Talk about clutch. By far, Ray Allen would definitely be up there. Steph Curry would definitely be up there. But I'm going with my man, Reggie.
Reggie. Good deal. And finally, you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan from Oil City, PA, which is outside of Pittsburgh. Now, you got Chuck Noll, you got Bill Cowher, and you got Mike Tomlin. Which one you would want on the sideline during the Super Bowl coaching the Steelers, and why?
Gotta go with the oldie, Chuck Noll. I mean, he won 4 Super Bowls with the Steelers. Dude's a legend. You gotta go with Chuck Noll. I mean, I love Cowher and Tomlin too, but Chuck, going with Chuck.
There you go. And here's a bonus question: your favorite moment working with yours truly, and why?
Oh boy, Jermaine, we had so many fun times together. The one moment I always think about to this day was our first Virginia Tech football game that we covered together, Ohio State, on the field at Lane Stadium. And I remember because you were trying to explain to me, you're like, it gets crazy during Enter Sandman. And I was like, yeah, I'm good. And I remember you looking over at me during Enter Sandman, and I just was like, and you're like, this is awesome, isn't it? And I was like, oh my gosh. So I'll never forget being on the sidelines with you, and we were just like, this is awesome. And that was our first assignment together, I think, right?
Yeah, we put in about a 12, 13-hour day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Labor Day night, and we had a ball with that. You know, one of my favorite times is the Fact or Fiction segments, because I felt like I was the man on Fact or Fiction. But saying, there you go.
We saw.
And I was right about Antonio Brown, because I remember a segment we did about Antonio Brown. I told you about Antonio Brown. I said, you gotta get rid of him. What happened?
And we can't forget about our Friday night dance parties in the sports office after Sports Live. We'd be up so late posting our stories to the web, and we'd be trying to stay awake, so we'd be blasting music, and everyone would be dancing at their desk.
That's good stuff. I tell you what, you had some interesting trips. I remember the Syracuse trip where you got bloodied at Syracuse. You froze in Notre Dame, and then there was something else funny to have. I can't come to mind, but those two. I said, what happened to you? And you said, well, I got cut. And Travis was up there. I forgot we were there for 10. But you suffered it. You suffered that itch. I said, we need a cut man for you.
Yeah, I'll never forget that. So the Carrier Dome, when they set it up for the football team, I mean, the sidelines are right up against the bleachers. So I remember there were so many turnovers in that game. So we shot the games back then. We were running. You have to stay ahead of the play. So we would all grab our cameras and run to the other side, end zone to shoot coming at you. Then there was another interception thrown, so we'd be running back and forth. But one time down, there was these huge fans, to keep the players cool, and the thing was sticking out of it, and I just ran and just cut my entire arm. I remember I was wearing white, and Travis Wells from WDBJ looked at me. He's like, "What is going on? Are you okay? What happened to you?" Yeah, battle wounds, man.
I tell you, you're out there hustling. That's what it is. All right, 2 more quick questions before you have to. Well, I'm not going to mention, but anyway, 2 more quick questions. Is there an event, and you've covered a lot of big events. I mean, ACC tournaments, Super Bowls, Stanley Cup. The list is endless. Bowl games. Is there an event that you want? If there's an event out there you haven't covered yet that you want to cover and say, hey, okay, this is on my checklist?
There's a lot. I mean, like you mentioned, I've covered the Super Bowl and Stanley Cup, but I've never covered a World Series, which would be awesome, an NBA championship, which would be awesome. I'm a huge golf nerd. I play golf quite a bit. So covering the Masters would be huge. So yeah, there's still, I haven't even touched, this is the tip of the iceberg. I hope that I get to cover some bigger events, and we'll see. I mean, that's what's so fun about our jobs. We don't know what's next,
Right. And then being in Vegas, I mean, the fact is you have opportunities for WNBA finals, still a Stanley Cup, and then a Super Bowl if, the Raiders make a run, which I think the fan support there is just going to be so tremendous. I think the Las Vegas and the Raiders, they kind of fit. To me, don't you feel like there's just two things that fit together?
Oh, definitely. I mean, you have the Raiders, you have the Black Hole, just the fan base, they're known for being rowdy and crazy, and mix that with the craziness of Las Vegas. And gonna get wild here on Sunday. That's for
Good
sure.
deal. That's gonna be crazy. And then actually I do have another question, but a final question, not a final to the final, but you've interviewed a lot of big names. I've seen you've interviewed, like I remember you interviewed Jerry Cooney, you've interviewed Brent Musburger, you've interviewed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Frank Beamer, Richie McKay, Buzz Williams. Is there a person that you would just, I mean, Kobe Bryant, I mean, I could go on and on. I mean, you have a who's, like an all-star team. Is there someone that you want to interview that you haven't had a chance to?
To be honest, I don't think that there's anyone like, of course, I think everyone would say this in our field that hasn't interviewed him. Michael Jordan, of course. If I had the chance to interview him, then I could die happy. Jordan, of course, would be the one, I think, person that would be like, wow, this is pretty dope.
Good deal. Well, Kevaney, we could probably do this for hours, but we say like we have. But no, it's been a joy catching up with you and letting everybody know during the WFXR Sports Sit Down on WFXRTV.com what you're up to and how you're progressing. And the final question: how do you see yourself? Where do you see yourself 5 or even 10 years from now? I mean, where do you have a goal on what you want to be doing 5 to 10 years from now?
That's a great question. If you would have asked me this, 5 years ago, it would be ESPN or bust, or, like that was just the goal. But now that, 5, 10 years from now, my goal is just to still be loving what I'm doing. And I know that sounds cheesy, but for me, like I love waking up and going to work every day. And if I can say that 5 to 10 years from now, then I've succeeded in life. So it's not necessarily for me, like where I am or who I'm working for. For me, it's just like a interpersonal satisfaction that I can say, I'm just loving what I'm doing. And right now I can say that. So I'm just hoping that, 5, 10 years from now that I can still say the same thing.
Good stuff. This is my final question. Because questions keep popping my brain. I'm like, Jermaine, I had enough. So, no, but this, in all seriousness, there are a lot of awesome women in the business, and I think you're one of them. I think you're one of the rising. I don't would say rising, or you're a star, but you're going to continue to grow and just knock it out the park. What piece of advice would you give young women or just young people in general that are wanting to get into the business, want to start? You're a college senior and you knew what you had to do. You had to put a reel together and go to South Dakota. Or I remember when I graduated from college, I had to put a reel together. I ended up as a production assistant. What piece of advice would you give those young Sparkies out there, male or female, about the business and how they can progress and ultimately get to their dreams and goals?
Yeah, I mean, this might sound also kind of cliche, but never give up. I mean, if you want it that bad, if this is what you want to do, get into this business and, cover sports for a living, don't give up. I mean, it's like, I think you just gave the example of you had to start as a production assistant. I had to go to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. It's a tough business. It's competitive. A lot of people want to be doing what we're doing. But if you want it bad enough and you work hard enough and you show that, you're willing to go anywhere, Sioux Falls, do anything, production assistant, to get your foot in the door, it will pan out. So that would be my message to the young guns getting into this is don't give up on your dream if you really want it. You're going to get, like I said earlier, a lot more no's than yeses, especially starting out. But keep grinding, keep your head down, keep going, and it will pan out. And and you'll see your dreams come to fruition.
Awesome. One person you kind of remind me of when I listen to you talk about basketball, because you schooled me in the ins and outs of basketball, so I'm not going to dispute that. You remind me so much of a Doris Burke. I could see you kind of like a Doris Burke type where you're just analyzing basketball, not just women. I'm talking about men's basketball. You just have that Doris Burke in you. I've seen it, and I love what she does. In fact, I love when she analyzes a game, particularly, the NBA Finals and all that. But you kind of have a Doris Burke in you.
Well, that is probably the best compliment anyone could give me, because DB is, oh man, like she's amazing, obviously. And like you just said I could listen to her break down, analyze basketball every single day of my life. She's incredible. So thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it. But yeah, DB is a legend, a living legend, and yeah, one of the best in the biz.
Well, you're one of the best in the business, Kevaney. I appreciate you giving me the time again on the WFXR Sports Sit Down on WFXRTV.com. One of the founding members, WFXR Sports Team, brought the band back together for a short amount of time. Kevaney Martin, I wish you all the best, kid. Good luck. God bless you and your family and everybody in Vegas, and continued success.
Well, thank you so much, Jermaine, for having me. It's been a blast, going down memory lane with you. And I wish you all the best in Roanoke, and stay safe. And hopefully we'll be able to see each other soon in person, not through Zoom.
And that's the truth. Well, you have a blessed day, kid.
Thank you. You too.